We have a very exciting lunch program for you today. We have Elaine Parker, who just wants to be known as Elaine. She's the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation, and we have Bernie Marcus, who's the founder of Home Depot and the Job Creators Network. And I wanted to say a few words about Bernie Marcus before I introduce Elaine. Many of you might not know much about him, but let me say a few things that you should know. Most importantly, from my perspective, none of what you're experiencing today would be here were it not for him, and the generosity and the commitment that he has made to Docs for Patient Care and to healthcare in general, improving healthcare for all Americans. The Marcus Foundation has been the principal source of funding for the Docs for Patient Care Foundation, and this meeting would not have occurred if we did not exist. And it's questionable whether the DPC movement would be as far along as it is today were it not for the leadership of Docs for Patient Care. So by the transitive property of mathematics, DPC owes a tremendous debt to Bernie Marcus. He is a patriot, he's a man of great conviction, and someone who leads by example. In Atlanta, where we both live, his fingerprints are all over healthcare institutions that are integral to the health and well-being of patients there. The Marcus Center for Autism leads the world in that area. The Marcus Trauma Center at Grady Hospital, the Shepherd Center for Spinal Cord Injuries, and the Marcus Heart and Vascular Center at the brand new Piedmont Hospital Tower are but a sample of the many healthcare initiatives that the Marcus Foundation has supported over the years. I look forward to hearing his talk, and hopefully he will inspire and challenge you all beyond what you thought you might be capable of before you came here today. And it's my honor and privilege to be associated with him, even in a small way. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Elaine Parker, who heads the Job Creators Network. I've been privileged to work with the Job Creators Network over the last few years and their CEO, Alfredo Ortiz. And they have recently made healthcare one of the principal issues for 2020 and are committed to educating Americans about the benefits of free market and the role that they can play in shaping public policy. Elaine and the foundation have launched a campaign called Healthcare for You, which she will tell us a little bit about today and then introduce Bernie Marcus. So we're delighted that they're both here today with us. Please welcome Elaine Parker.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Hal, for those kind words. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us today. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the Job Creators Network, talk to you about what we've done in the past, and talk to you a little bit about what we're doing now with healthcare. So I want to start by telling you about the Job Creators Network. We are a national small business advocacy organization founded by Bernie Marcus. What we do is we represent, we advocate, and we educate on behalf of small businesses for lower taxes, less regulation, pro-business policies in general. In essence, we fight for the little guy, which many of you are. I love to tell everybody what Newt Gingrich says about us. JCN is the most impactful organization you haven't heard of. And that's because we work with our small business owners to get their voice out. We act as a platform for them to amplify their voice so that Washington and legislators and the media and the public in general can hear the types of policies that they need to create jobs and do what they do best. Let me talk to you a little bit about how powerful the small business voice is and how much influence it can have in the public policy discussion. There's 30 million small business owners. They employ 60 million people. That's 90 million people dependent on the success of small business. Imagine the impact we could have if we had 30 million small business owners talking about the kind of policies that they need to keep doing what they're doing. They create 2/3 of all new jobs, and they employ half of our workforce. So I'm going to tell you how small business can make a difference through a case study. In 2017, we launched a campaign called Tax Cuts Now, and we helped push the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act over the finish line through our small business and by amplifying their voice. I've got a short video to show you that kind of sums everything up.
The Trump tax bill is in trouble tonight.
In the summer of 2017, the pro-business, pro-growth agenda in Congress had all but stalled.
Are they going to pass a tax bill?
Well, they're going to have a rough time.
They want to have something that they can tell voters we did.
Still aiming to have it signed before the end of the year. Here's the issue.
But there was one person who insisted that was wrong.
Donald Trump's an entrepreneur. He's doing entrepreneurial things. All of that leads you to more economic growth.
Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich called on legislators and the White House to focus on the pocketbook issues that voters across America could understand and rally around. Focus on tax cuts, not tax reform. Gingrich reached out to Job Creators Network to get the job done on legislation that middle-class Americans will see, feel, and understand. Job Creators Network acted, and acted fast, launching a multi-million-dollar Tax Cuts Now campaign in late August. They partnered with some of the biggest talk radio hosts in America and deployed social media and TV ads, all targeted at the very people who voted for economic growth and opportunity in 2016, the same people who would be voting again in 2018. In the nearly 4-month-long campaign, JCN drove awareness and started a grassroots firestorm, driving a message of Tax Cuts Now through its advertising and bus tour that crisscrossed the nation, culminating with a rally at the steps of the IRS in Washington. JCN dominated the message with the media with 1.35 billion impressions that had an ad equivalent value of $16.5 million. JCN also recruited hundreds of small business owners to tell their stories to the media in the form of op-eds, letters to the editor, and media appearances. These voices demonstrated that the call for tax cuts didn't originate in Washington, D.C., but from hardworking small business owners and entrepreneurs across the country. Job Creators Network organized nearly 70 state and national business organizations to show a united front on the call for tax cuts. Job Creators Network worked behind the scenes with both congressional leaders and the White House to overcome obstacles and challenges to achieve the consensus on a plan and a path to victory.
Hey, good morning. For those of you just joining us, President Trump has just signed a historic $1.5 trillion tax bill.
When you fight for small business, you're fighting for America.
That's the power of small business owners in getting out there and talking about these issues. Our Tax Cuts Now campaign was very grassroots oriented. We literally were out there on that bus. We had 26 events in 20 states. We had U.S. congressmen at every event, small business owners. They were hosted right at the small business owner locations. The advocate program, which the video alluded to, was a very important piece to the campaign. We recruited about 250 small business owners in 15 different states that were willing to speak out in the media by signing op-eds, going on TV, talking on the radio, going to events. And that made a big difference. And over the course of the campaign, we placed more than 1,400 op-eds and letters to the editor in national publications and state publications all around the country so that it was a consistent message of what small business owners needed, and that was Tax Cuts Now. This is just some of the publications that we placed in national, state, national TV as well. That's one of our small business owner members on Fox News. Another example of how we enter the discussion on public policy was earlier this year. As many of you have probably followed, and healthcare has been a big part of the discussion, socialism has been a big issue this year, and we led the way in the beginning of the year. If you recall or read about, Amazon was going to open headquarters in New York and bring 25,000 jobs. This freshman congresswoman decided that she didn't want 25,000 jobs to come to New York for her constituents, paying $150,000 apiece, and so she ran them off. We decided to call her out on that with a billboard smack dab in the middle of Times Square, telling her thanks for nothing. 25,000 jobs and $150,000 apiece. I mean, there was a time when we protested wars, and now we're protesting jobs, is all we kept saying. I'm going to show you a quick video on some of the coverage, because when this billboard hit Times Square, it was international coverage. It was amazing. We went back and forth with her with a couple different billboards. It was fun. She likes to tweet. This is the video. It's a compilation of some of the coverage that we received. I don't think it was
Amazon officially announced it will not be building an additional headquarters in New York.
Amazon blames politicians who will not work with us to build the type of relationships that are required to go forward with the project.
Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a fierce critic of Amazon coming to New York.
So there's a new billboard on the block.
A billboard battle making national headlines.
Well, there are new billboards. One group was especially vocal in blaming Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Job Creators Network.
The Job Creators Network. Job Creators Network calling out Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for her role in Amazon's departure from New York City.
Joining us now, CEO of the Job Creators Network, Alfredo Ortiz.
Alfredo Ortiz.
Wow, that's a heck of a billboard right in the heart of Times Square.
One of the things that we like to say is that socialism takes, but capitalism creates.
Quite frankly, AOC represents the attack on our beliefs of free enterprise in this country, and we can't let that happen. And I got to focus on the lost economic activity of just hardworking Americans. We used to protest wars, now we're protesting jobs. Congratulations, AOC. Now you have 100% of nothing.
She literally cost New York 25,000 jobs, $4 billion in lost wages, $27 or so billion in lost economic activity.
We're going to keep defending free enterprise until we actually win this fight.
Which brings us to why we're here today. About a month ago, we launched a new campaign called Healthcare for You. And it is, when we take a look back, before Obamacare was passed, we can all start from the premise of we had an imperfect system. Obamacare made that imperfect system, broke it even worse, and exacerbated the problems that we already had. Now we're staring at a Medicare for All proposal by many of the Democratic candidates that are running for president. It's a one-size-fits-all government approach that will take away choice and decimate the doctor-patient relationship. Our solution is personalized healthcare choice. We've launched this campaign, like I said, about a month ago, working with Physicians for Reform. We conducted very powerful market research that included 25,000 American voters. These are not just Democrats or Republicans or independents, it's all of them. Because we're all Americans. This shouldn't be a Republican plan or a Democratic plan. This should be an American plan. And what the research shows us is that Americans want personalized health care, not a one-size-fits-all. And how we're going to do it is we're going to repair, restore, and improve the patient-doctor relationships. And we're going to get DC bureaucrats out of the decision-making. And we're going to expand choice and increase competition so we can make health care affordable for everyone. We have a recipe for success, as I showed you in our Tax Cuts Now campaign. And that's our campaign elements will include many of the same things. We have a website, it's healthcareforyou.com. I encourage all of you to go there because from our research, we've created a framework for healthcare reform, which also includes proposed reforms that can actually bring those elements of the reform to fruition. We've already started drafting op-eds, doing television commercials, but I want to bring your attention to the Physician Advocate Program. I told you about the Small Business Advocate Program. We're pulling together a physician advocate program because there is no more powerful voice than to bring together physicians who are on the front lines like yourselves to talk about what's wrong with the system and how bad a Medicare for All system would be. Bring that voice together with our small business owners who have been decimated and can no longer, more than a third of them can no longer even provide health insurance for their employees because it's too expensive. So we're going to look to physicians to fill that role as well, to speak out in the media. And we've already started media training about a dozen physicians to get them comfortable talking in the media, signing op-eds, being on the radio, and it's been very successful. This is the website if you get a chance to look at it. I went really fast by there, but there it is. This is already some of the media that we've received, national radio, national TV, and we're running op-eds. We've had some articles as well written, so we continue to push this message. Just about 2 weeks, the White House started using Healthcare for You versus Medicare for All and talking about personalized healthcare. So the White House likes what they're hearing. We know the American people like what they're hearing, so we need to keep pushing this message so we can see legislation come through. Fortunately, we are on the same page with the Republican Study Committee. They released their healthcare plan about a week after we did, and we are in sync in many, many areas, which is fantastic because we can all push forward the same message for personalized healthcare. John Goodman, who is an expert and a leading expert in the healthcare field, wrote an article in Forbes right after the RSC released their plan and acknowledged that our research backs up many of the elements for personalized healthcare. We're working with some key partners, Dr. Tom Price, John Goodman, as I mentioned, and last week, former Speaker Newt Gingrich endorsed our plan. I want to show you our first commercial that we just finished a few weeks ago.
So a politician, a bureaucrat, and a lobbyist all walk into a hospital room. They say, "Don't worry, we're from Big Medicine. We're here to help." You know what I'm talking about? Somebody asked me about Medicare for all the other day. And I said, "Don't you mean mediocre for all?" I mean, you know what I'm saying?
The problems with government-run healthcare would be comical if they weren't true. It's time to restore the doctor-patient relationship. Find out how at healthcareforyou.com.
So that's just the first of many to come. We've got 3 more in the pipeline, so stay tuned for more. Visit our website, follow us on social media. We need your support. We need your voice. We need you to fight with us, and I believe that we can win this. We've done it before with tax cuts. So thank you very much. And now I'm going to introduce Bernie Marcus. As Hal mentioned before, he co-founded the Home Depot and our organization, the Job Creators Network. Bernie's going to share his inspiring life message and of success and how the free market can help in many areas, especially healthcare. And more importantly, he's going to talk about how we get it done. Ladies and gentlemen, Bernie Marcus.
You ready? You ready for me? I don't think so. Elaine, let me add a couple of things to Elaine. Why am I involved with Job Creators Network? I'm very successful, have lots of money. I could be living on a golf course today. What am I doing here? I mean, what am I doing here, frankly? Sitting with a lot of doctors, you know, unless I want my blood pressure checked, I don't need you. What do I need you for? The truth is, I remember the very early days of Home Depot. I remember I started Home Depot when I was 50 years old, and I remember working 7 days a week, 80 hours a week, and I mean working our butts off. And we were small business people at that time. And small business people, life is not easy to get started. You're all small business people. You started your practices. You know how difficult it is to put a practice together. Well, in those days, it was tough for us. We were undercapitalized. We started a business with $2 million, opened 4 stores with it. Couldn't happen. You can't do it. Hiring 200 people in 4 stores. We went through our money in about 1 month. We had to put empty boxes up in the stores. We bought empty paint cans and piled them to the ceiling. People thought they're full of paint. They weren't. They were empty. And we created this illusion that we were a big warehouse. But we did, on the products that we sold, we did give the customer the product at 35% less than what they were paying. We gave them great service. We had people that really cared about them, and we built this business. But I remember what it was like in those years. We had 10 years of really, really hard work. And the rest of my life there was also hard work, but not like those first 10 years. So I remember what it was like being a small guy and having come out of Newark, New Jersey, a tenement where I was born. My parents were Russian immigrants, spoke no English. We were poor as hell. And life was not easy. There were no places for us to fall back. We didn't have the things that you have here now, food stamps or any of those things. If my father didn't earn something, we didn't eat. It was as simple as that. And I learned one thing from my parents. Number one, that this was the golden land. In Yiddish, they would say, this is the golden land. This meant that this was a great country. They came here because they knew there was opportunity. And my mother, who's a real optimist, said, you could be anything here. You could be the president of the United States if you work hard enough and you want it. And you could be successful no matter what you do if you keep working hard at doing it. And you could overcome every obstacle that you possibly can want to do. She taught us, and I learned, and I believe to this day, this is the greatest country in the world. There is no better. Now, early on, I wanted to be one of you. I wanted to be a doctor. From the time I was 13 years old, I learned medical. I would go to the library. I would go to see my doctor when my mother took me, and I would discuss medicine with him. I would discuss the organs of the body. He was astounded that somebody 13, 14 years old knew what I knew, but I always knew I was going to be a doctor. And I did go to pre-med. I had 2 years of pre-med, pretty good student. And then the reality of getting to medical school started with me. And I found that there was a restriction on Jews being only 10% allowed into the colleges of medicine. And if you didn't have any money, you didn't get in. The 10% that got in were the ones that could afford to pay for it and pay through the nose. And therefore, I didn't become a doctor. I could have been somebody. I could be struggling where you are now today. You know, wondering what the hell is this government going to do to me next to put me out of business? How are they going to make my life miserable? How the insurance company is going to make me crazy? How are the bureaucrats going to figure out a new way to make me miserable from the day I get up, when I get up in the morning till I go to sleep at night? And how do I pay my bills? And meanwhile, do the one thing that you all want to do, is just take care of your patients, give them the best care, be able to hold their hands, make sure that you walk them through where they want to go, and make sure that they have what they want to have. That's what the system was meant to be. But we, unfortunately, are headed toward a socialist system today. You could see it right in front of your eyes. I spoke to one doctor here today that came from, where did she come from? From Yugoslavia, talking about what she lived through in Yugoslavia with socialism. Well, you don't have to go far to live through what socialism brings you. Let me tell you a couple of stories about the UK and Canada. These are stories I didn't read in the books, I didn't read in the newspapers. I have a nephew that lives in Toronto, Canada. Smart guy. He's a pediatrician, not a pediatrician, foot doctor. What's that called? A podiatrist. Okay. I'm 90 years old. Please forgive me. By the way, the only reason I wear a name tag is because I forget my own name. But he's a pretty bright kid. College education, you would think he was smart. Well, he's not so smart. This happened to him 4 years ago. 4 years ago. He called me up and said, Uncle Bernie, I want to tell you I'm going into the hospital today. I'm having bypass surgery. I said, Arnold, I'm so sorry to hear that. Tell me when you discovered it. He said, 5 months ago. I said, they diagnosed it 5 months ago. He said, yeah, they couldn't take me until today. 5 months ago, Canada, right across the border. It's incredible. 2 years later, he called me the same thing, and he said, I didn't call you because I found out I had cancer. I'm being treated today. When did you find out? 4 months ago. 4 months ago. I said, Arnold, the system up there is terrible. He says, no, we have the greatest system in the world. We get it for nothing. What do you get for nothing, ladies and gentlemen? You get nothing. 4 months. A very dear friend of mine, which I told somebody before, lives here in Florida. He's from Toronto. He comes down with the other Canadians. Very wealthy guy. And he and I had open heart surgery. He had a back surgery. He was up in Toronto recovering. I called him up. I said, Phil, how are you? He said, my back is killing me. I can't sit. I can't walk. I can't lay down. I'm in pain constantly. I said, is there anything you can do? He said, I need an MRI desperately. I said, well, why don't you get it? He said, I have to wait 4 weeks to get it. I said, why don't you get on your plane, come down to the United States. I will have an MRI at 3 different hospitals in the morning, the afternoon, at night. The same day. He says that it's great. He says, I thank you very much, but I really, and the reason I'm getting it in 4 weeks is because 2 months ago, I gave this hospital $5 million. Otherwise, how long would he have had to wait? Months. And he still thinks it's the greatest system in the world, except his wife had hip surgery. Guess where she had it done? In the United States. In the United States. So if you have money, where do you come? You come to the United States. I spoke to Rick Scott, who's a senator of Florida. He was on the board of a hospital on the border of Canada in the United States. He said 40% of his patients, of the patients of this hospital, came from Canada, all paying for procedures that they get for nothing in Canada. Oh my God. Who's crazy here? Who is nuts? In the UK, what is it now? How many people? 4.4 million people waiting for procedures in the UK. Why in God's name would a moron, or the morons that we call Democrats, want to see that system here? Why the hell, can you tell me anybody? Look, I'm not an ardent Republican. I'm an American citizen. I vote different ways. I believe in a lot of social issues. I believe in abortion. I believe in a lot of things. But stupidity, I don't deal well with. Okay? Now, let me tell you a couple of things here. I wanted to be a doctor, and the truth is, I'm very much involved with medicine as it is right now. In my philanthropy, as Elaine mentioned, we have the stroke center in Atlanta. We have a stroke center in Boca Raton. We did the emergency room and the trauma room at Grady Hospital in Atlanta. We're building Piedmont Hospital, a new wing at Piedmont Hospital. We're involved with cancer research. We're working with Johns Hopkins on a blood test that will detect stage 4 cancer at stage 1 in pancreas, ovarian, and all the cancers that you can't get. And it's a simple blood test. And we're in the FDA now, looking at it right now. We think it'll work. As far as autism, we have a lot of things going on. I've been involved with autism for 30 years. And we're treating more children in Atlanta by a multiple of 8, more than anybody in the world that we're aware of. In addition to that, We're doing research with Duke University on using stem cells for autistic children. We're in the FDA now with it. We've done 2 clinical trials. We're now doing the 3rd clinical trials. It's very, very promising, and it could change their lives. In addition to that, we've developed a device that actually can detect autism at 2 months of age. And if we can detect it at 2 months, we can now start treating those children and change their lives completely. And you know how devastating autism is with children, and how devastating it is to the family, their structure, and their finances. It's a horror story. So I'm still somehow involved in medicine. I keep doing it. 40% of what we do in philanthropy is dedicated to medical issues. And we've already given away over $2 billion in foundation work, okay? So, Elaine, I'm not following your thing. I'm trying to follow it, okay? She knows better than that. In addition to that, we have other things that we're working on today. You know, this is a great country. We are very concerned about immigrants coming over the border. We are really, really concerned about their health, their welfare. But let me tell you something. Kids that fight for this country, that volunteer to go into the military, the Navy, the Army, the Marines, and come back with this terrible disease, we can't call it a disease, traumatic brain injury, of which millions come out of the service, and traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. The VA is not able to handle it. And by the way, the VA, what a great example of Medicare for all. Any of you have been involved with the VA? A disaster. And we spend, I don't know how many billions of dollars every year, and billions more every year, more and more, and it's worse and worse than it's ever been before. Well, traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress, they can't handle it. We are now opening facilities around the country. The first one was in Colorado, at the University of Colorado. We are now opening one at Tulane, one at Jefferson Hospital, and one at Jacksonville. In addition to that, we have camps that they go to, and we also have something called Operation Share, where we have the most difficult cases of all in Atlanta, Georgia, with the Shepherd Center. And those cases take 12 weeks of dealing with. I could tell you this, 20 to 21 kids a day commit suicide in the United States. That's a terrible legacy. If that's not a recipe for failure for the Veterans Administration, you tell me what is. That's the report card. Imagine Medicare for all. We will have millions of people dying that they can't take care of because they won't be able to have the resources. And what happens in the UK, they don't have MRIs, they don't have scanning machines, they don't have the proper operating rooms. It's a disaster. And we're going to have it here. We're building these hospitals and we're bypassing the Veterans Administration. And hopefully, within 5 years, we'll have 25 facilities. And we hope to put the Veterans Administration out of business in this area. Okay. So, you can see what we're doing here. Let me tell you where you sit today. You sit in a very bad position. I don't normally go out and make speeches because I made a lot of enemies when I go out. I wonder why. Because basically I say my mind. As I say, I'm 90 years old. I really don't care. But the truth is I was this way when I was 60. Unfortunately, we don't have enough people standing up and fighting for their rights. I'm kind of ashamed of the group that I belong to called the Millionaires Group, the Billionaires Group. How cowardly they are. They're ashamed of the money they made. I'm not ashamed of it. Holy mackerel, all my life I dreamed of becoming wealthy. All my life I dreamed about being in a position where I could take care of so many people. And I have taken care of millions of people in my lifetime by becoming a billionaire. As we say at the Job Creators Network, if you don't make it, you can't give it away, can you? And we don't want the government giving it away. When I get on TV, and believe me, poison pen letters, they've already, and by the way, I'm not associated with Home Depot anymore. There have been 5 boycotts of Home Depot stores because of what I said. And what I said is, I don't want some moron in Congress giving my money away. I want to give it away where I can give it away, where I know it'll be useful and something good will come out of it. They couldn't do that with my money, and I don't want them to. And by the way, I'm going to give all of my money away before I die, hopefully, and if not, by the time I die, it'll all be gone. So why would I want Elizabeth Warren giving my dough away that I worked so hard for? And you could be a Democrat, I don't really care. She's a damn dunce, okay? You believe in her, I got something to sell you. I think that the whole reason for Job Creators Network is to be out there and fighting for very few people fight for. There are not many organizations that stand up and do what Job Creators Network did. On this tax thing, you don't quite understand it. If Job Creators Network had not gotten involved with Newt Gingrich, there would not have been a tax bill. I could tell you that from the president, I could tell you that from McCarthy, and I could tell you that from the Speaker of the Senate. Everybody, McConnell, everybody knows that if Job Creators Network was not involved, it would not have passed. And that's had a major influence in the United States. Look at what's happened on unemployment. Look at what's happened with unemployment with minorities, the blacks, the Hispanics, women. More people are working today than at any time in the history of this country. Any time in the history of this country. We're seeing salaries go up. And we're seeing salaries go up because of this thing that the president was able to do, along with getting rid of restrictions and a lot of things that he did away with from prior administrations. We looked at what's coming up now. What do the Americans need? And we looked at socialism as being a major function coming forward, and socialism spreading into Medicare for all, which I really have difficulty with. And I've met a lot of Democratic administrators, senators, members of the House. They're not dumb. They're smart. How could they support something where it's factually proven that it doesn't work? It's factually proven. All you have to do is go across the border, fly across the water. It doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen, and they're going to foster it here. And I could tell you that Medicare for all is the beginning of socialism in the United States. From there, it'll spread. Our children are already poisoned. They believe that socialism is the right thing to do. And anybody who's been a legal immigrant in the United States came here because they're running away from what they saw. And they see us going to this direction, and they can't quite understand what is wrong with the American people. What is wrong with those legislators who don't quite see it? We decided that the next big battle was going to be health care. We got involved with health care. We helped do this 25,000 interviews. It was a very different one because we didn't say to people, do you dislike this or do you like that? Well, we said, if you couldn't get this, would you like this instead? I forget what it's called. It's a type of polling system That's rarely given. But what we got out of it is that people are willing to change. For instance, a family where the parents are 60 years old, they don't want obstetric care. If they're living a good life, they don't want addiction in their policy. All the things that are mandated by the policy that they're now paying for with Obamacare, and they're overpaying because they're taking things that they don't need. Now, everybody needs to know that they, in fact, on pre-existing conditions, can be taken care of. That's part of this policy. That's number one on this policy. Pre-existing conditions will be covered. But the patient relationship with the doctor remains, and we cut the insurance companies out wherever we can. And the doctor authorizes, in our plan, the doctor authorizes the procedure, and it doesn't have to be approved on by the insurance company. Now, all of that can be delivered at a cost, believe it or not, that's lower than what people are paying now. And we have the numbers to prove it. So we have now done this research. We've given it over to the Republican Party and are now working on it, putting it together. And hopefully it'll come out as a document. It's being written as we speak. And the American people can now choose, do you want what you want, or do you want what some politician out there wants you to have? And by the way, you know they don't live with what we have. You know they have the best insurance in the world. They don't live with Obamacare. They have insurance that you'd love to have. But we don't have it. Nobody else has it. So I'm telling you, this is a great program. It's more important for you than any other profession. It affects your life. If Medicare for All comes out, I don't know how many of you are going to be in practice in the years to come. We already know that 1 out of 3 hospitals will close in the United States. We already know that. How many doctors will be able to survive on Medicare payments? I don't know. I'm just not sure anybody will be able to. I don't know how many hospitals will be able to do it. Unless they have these nefarious deals with the drug companies, they won't be able to do it. So we're all faced with this. Now, I'm going to ask you one thing. You went to school for how many years? Many of you for 10, 12, 15, 20 years to get where you are. Is it worth fighting for now? Is it? Well, you can't sit on your rear ends, listen to a 90-year-old guy telling you have to fight back. You have to get off your asses and do it yourself. You have to get involved with this fight, and you have to fight like it's life and death, because for you, it's life and death. And too many times you guys have sat around, you watch while the AMA allowed this profession to be destroyed. You sat on your asses and you didn't get up and fight. It's time for you to do what you never did before. Get up and do something about it. Very simple thing. You all have patients, don't you? Not one of you would think about telling your patients about what they're facing. You do a procedure, you do a hip operation. Why don't you tell them that if they want a hip operation in the future, they'll have to wait 6 months and probably won't even get it if they're over 80. They won't get it. And you know they won't get it. Why don't you tell your patients these things? Why don't you share this information? They are going to vote for these idiots that are going to put it in. So everybody here, if you just did what you can do in the easiest way of all, just talk to your patients honestly, you can help change what happens in the next few years. That's number one. Number two, open up your damn wallets. We know doctors are notoriously cheap. Notoriously. You don't pay for anything if you don't have to. Well, you better start paying now because you're buying insurance on your lifeline. If you don't start putting some money into this program, you're going to go down with the damn ship. And if that's what you want to do, do it. I think you have to get up here and start giving money to the Job Creators Network. We're fighting for you. We need your money. Okay? Now, I'm rich, but if you're not involved, we're dead. Because it can't be from a rich Jewish guy who's 90 years old, okay? It's got to be from you who's out in the field and sees what's happening. So I'm going to ask you to open up your wallets today, and I'm going to ask you to do what you didn't do in the past, and that is start paying for your own ability to live. Okay? Period. That's my message to you today, and I'm going to stay here and answer any questions you might have. So do we have a mic or something? Okay. And I'm prepared to answer the questions honestly. Is anybody armed, by the way? Nobody armed. Okay. I'm cool. Do you have a mic? Okay. All right.
Mr. Marcus?
Yep.
I just want to thank you so much for being here. I would say to you that the people that are in this room are the warriors, are the people who are willing to fight. I know everybody in this room has spoken to their patients and told them that what they're going to get if they get Medicare for All. I got my credit card right here. Where do I donate $1,000 to the Job Creators Network? How do I do this?
That's the lady right here. And we welcome your money. Thank you very much. Yeah. What? It's all on healthcareforyou.com. Please write it down, healthcareforyou.com. You want to send money? We accept everything over $10,000. Okay.
Mr. Marcus, thank you so much for being here and being so honest, and we really appreciate your presence here. My question to you is, I'm hearing across the nation that the biggest change in healthcare will be with big businesses like Amazon and choosing not to take what insurance companies are giving them. Do you agree with that, or do you have any?
No, listen.
comment on that?
I think that we're going to have a real problem. You know, Washington is run by lobbyists, whether you know it or not, and most of our representatives, I don't care who they are influenced by the amount of money that comes their way. And I can tell you that the insurance companies are going to spend millions of dollars, and I'm not using the number millions, to overcome what we're trying to push through Congress. The key is, if the voices become so loud, if people like you, and I really mean this collectively, in your local government, I'm talking I don't care where you live in Atlanta, you live in Orlando, wherever you live, newspapers are open to you. The local TV stations are open to you. If you get on TV and you start talking about that, and the American people begin to realize the fraud that's being perpetrated right in front of their eyes, they're being lied to every single day of their lives, and they find out that this is a lie, they're going to now insist on having what we're going to offer, and they're going to help us fight for it. But we need your help to do it. It is not going to be an easy job. This is really tough. By the way, the tax cut was tough. I put that 10 times tougher than a tax cut.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I noticed that a lot of the advertising for Healthcare for You was like Fox News and the like. And I can tell you that, and I watch Fox News, by the way, so I'm not trying to say I don't, but very few people watch Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, all those. In fact, I have so many friends that all they watch is Netflix or NFL Sunday Football. So if you want to reach those people, that's where you're going to have to advertise, because that's what the majority of people are watching. Is healthcare for you trying to reach the people in those venues, which is where they are?
Well, I'll tell you, there are two ways to do it. The most effective way, you know, if you run a TV ad, the response, I think, if I remember correctly, if you get a 6% response, it's extraordinarily high. On social media, the response is a little bit higher than that. But if you talk to your patients, the response will be 100%. And every patient you talk to has a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, aunt, uncles, and friends. If that message gets through to them, we need the doctors of America to do their job first. It's the best advertising there is.
Except 50% of doctors now are employed, and their employers will not allow the doctor to have those kinds of conversations, trust me. Only the private doctors, which have become a minority now.
I think doctors have a perfect right to express their views on what they see happening to their patients. If I have a patient and I know that that patient is 70, 80 years old, is going to have problems down the road, and I know that they're going to have a hip problem, they're going to have a knee problem, they're going to have a lung problem, it's my issue, my fiduciary responsibility to let them know what they're facing in the future if, in fact, they let it happen to them. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm sorry. Legally, there's nothing wrong with it.
And a related issue. Like I noticed there were doctors that were being interviewed by programs and the like. But like I said, the majority of the media tends to be very liberal, tends to be sort of an arm of the party that you were talking about. And they are going to try to silence those voices.
Yeah.
How do you propose dealing with that?
Public opinion. Same thing I go right back to. It's public opinion. We're going to do our job at Job Creators Network. We're going to be on social media. We're going to be on TV. We're going to have the politicians, the Republican politicians, talking about it. There'll be some Democrats, believe it or not, who will really believe that they're wrong in the way they're going, that don't believe that socialism is the answer. They will help us, but ultimately it's word of mouth that does it. That's what does it. And you don't have to be nefarious about how you do it. I mean, my God, you take somebody who's in the 70s or 80s, who are a big portion of the voting population in America today, and you let them understand that they're not going to be able to get a hip operation when they need it, they're going to understand how they have to vote. And they're not going to vote against themselves. They need to have the information. Proper information and not propaganda is what tells people what they're going to do with their lives. I absolutely believe in it. Listen, I'm 90 years old, and I'm an optimist. And I believe that the American people are not stupid. They're just misinformed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Marcus, just want to thank you as a veteran.
Can you talk up a little bit?
I just want to tell you I appreciate the fact that you brought up the fragmented care from the VA. I'm a service-disabled veteran, and it's just refreshing to hear that there's other people that know the issues that the VA faces. And as a physician, I actually tell my family, if you want to kill me off, you take me to a VA hospital.
You want to what?
If you want to kill me, take me to a VA hospital.
I don't want to kill them. I don't want to kill the things that they can't take care of. They can't take care of post-traumatic stress. They can't take care of traumatic brain injury. And by the way, I want you to inform you that the VA is now sending patients to the clinics that we're setting up because they know they're incapable of handling it. There are some people in the VA who do believe that. But for a lot of veterans who have been from the Vietnam War, World War II, and the Korean War, where they have diabetes and they have heart conditions and everything else. There's no substitute right at this moment. But I think that somewhere in the future, there'll have to be. They're just going to have to be. VA is a bureaucratic, government-run system that cannot work. It can't work. Nothing the government does can work. I'm sorry to tell you.
And I appreciate that insight. I personally work in emergency rooms in rural areas. I've had World War II vets come in, wait 12, 24 hours for an ambulance transport to go to a facility to get the hip surgery that they need. And it's just very discerning to see that. And even becoming an EMS director and speaking to the medics out there and the other people that deal with that, it is disheartening to see how our veterans are treated. And being a physician, I have actually seen patients treated by VA physicians, intubated, neuromuscular blockade, but no sedative. We have had paramedics tell us about walking in on a situation of a patient being cardiac arrest from choking on food, and the doctor walk in and put their fingers on their foot and say, "Oh, he's dead," and turn around and walk out.
Now I'm going to
we
kill
have
myself.
an unspoken word in. We have an unspoken word in our.
You know, I tell you, one of the things that Trump did, and he is dedicated to doing it, is allowing the veterans to be treated where they live. You know, there is not a VA system every place in America. There's plenty of places where you have to travel 3-4 hours. And right now there is a policy in place of paying for their service at local emergency rooms. In fact, this last one includes these the ones run by drugstores, you know, the ones on the street. It's a big move forward, a tremendous move forward. So this administration is trying to fix the VA system, not fix the VA system, but make it easier for veterans to be treated, which I applaud terrifically. Look, you could be a Democrat or Republican. When you see these kids not being treated carefully and not being treated the way they should be, and when we're more concerned about illegal aliens coming over the border than we are about kids that are going out and fighting for us and getting blown up, then there's something wrong with you mentally. Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing it.
Thank you.
Hi. I am nervous a little bit, and this is my first speech in my life. I just want to say that I strongly agree with all what you said. And trust me, I am gonna speak to each of my single patient about what you said and to explain about Medicare for us. And I am not Republican, I am not Democrat, I am against stupidity. And I just admire you.
Good for you. So here, oh, we have one more. Okay.
So my question is with respect to, as we're trying to simplify things, as we're moving towards DPC and reinforcing the doctor-patient relationship, and that we're going to basically take care of the full spectrum of things that we absolutely can handle by our training. It means we're also cutting out a lot of other folks who have become employed within the healthcare system. And I personally am having a difficult time explaining to some of my colleagues who don't really understand DPC, why that's a valid response. So for people who work in big system medicine or work in like community health centers where they have this, what to me feels like an excess of staff, how do you explain to them that it's not a bad thing that those people basically don't have to be employed off of me billing extra for all these things just to try and support that office?
I think that the issue, again, comes about that a people who don't understand the issue, it's information that they have access to information, they're not getting the right information, and it's going to be our job to get everybody to be on the same base. Look, we are not going to convince everybody. There is no question about it. But the American people are very concerned about them. They're concerned about their families, their children. their mothers and their fathers, their grandparents. They don't want to see a system that's not going to work. They don't want to see a system that doesn't deliver health care. The key is how do we get the information out there? And that's why I'm just appealing to everybody here that you have to go back and not just convince your own families, convince your colleagues, the colleagues who aren't involved with it, to understand what kind of a calamity America is facing. This is 1/5 of the American economy that's about to go down the drain. And if you want to end up with a system like the VA hospital in your own community, you just don't know what you're voting for. And I think that they have it in their hands. I'd love the American people to stand up and tell these people who are running for office, if you continue to talk about this, I'm not going to vote for you. And don't vote for them. And let them know that. Maybe we'll change their mind and get some people with some rational thinking in their heads. Socialism does not work. Capitalism has brought people out of the depths of despair. Jobs have been created, careers for everybody, minorities, blacks, women, everything. Everybody is doing better in this country than any country in America. Why the hell are we going to take it and blow it up? Why would you want to blow it up? Well, here you have, we're going to blow it up. So all I can do is say to you again, it's healthcareforyou.com. Healthcareforyou.com. Get involved, contribute some money to us, and help us along. But more than that, start getting involved in your communities. Start getting involved with your groups of people that you know. Talk to your doctors and nurses that you're aware of, that you're exposed to. Spread the message and get these people to start talking to the patients who really will understand what is happening. Half the patients in America would not be in the hospitals today or being treated if it was socialized medicine. And that's all I can say to you. Thank you very much.
That was just incredible, wasn't it? One more round of applause for Bernie Marcus. Thank you for being here. So we have a gift to show our appreciation for taking time out from your schedule. That just indulge me and let me just tell you a little bit about this. So this is called the Sing Inkstand, and it's a silver ink stand that was used during the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. And it is one of the 4 objects that still exists that were present during the Constitutional Convention, along with Independence Hall itself.
Listen, I was there when they did this.
So you recognize it. So this was made by Philip Sing in 1752, and it was used by founding fathers such as Washington, Franklin, Jefferson. John Hancock's signature, that's world famous, came from this. And this is a recreation that was made by Boardman Silversmiths in Connecticut, who has the only license to make these. And there's an inscription that I would like to read on the top, and then there's one on the bottom that I can't show you, but I can read it to you. So it says, presented to Mr. Bernie Marcus with heartfelt appreciation from Docs for Patient Care Foundation.
Thank you.
But I just want to tell you, this is the thing that gave me chills, because this is kind of cool. On the bottom, there's an inscription, and our executive director, Felicia Horton, who was responsible for procuring this, and she is a very observant Christian, and she and her husband were trying to think about what to inscribe on the bottom, and so she gave that task to her husband, who picked a verse from the Old Testament that he thought would be apropos, and it came from Deuteronomy 6:4. And this is what really gave me chills, because it was like, oh my God! There is a saying in Yiddish which is beshert, and the saying is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God, which is like what Jews say whenever they go into a dark place. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And that really epitomizes Bernie Marcus, who is really moving into the dark places and trying to lead us into the light. So please accept this as a gift that shows our appreciation.
Thank you.